Hi. This episode will cover the year 1974, spring and fall semester, and Geeta's coming over to Syracuse in the summer of 74. Well, the spring semester, my load of work was mostly on the sedimentology related courses. I had one physical sedimentology seminar and another course on advanced chemical sedimentology by Dean, and a physical geology course taught by the team of professors. Then another thing I did was, in the spring, I completed the draft. I will not say the final draft, the pre-final draft of my master's thesis, and submitted the same to Dr. Miriam. Miriam said, I will let you know soon about what you should do further. And Dr. Miriam usually comes back to the department on most of the working days after dinner, if he is around in Syracuse, because we used to call him Henry Kissinger those days, because he is always on the air, traveling from place to place globally for many of his pursuits, being the General Secretary of the International Association of the Mathematical Geologists, as well as a consultant geologist. Then, of course, at the end of a month or so, 4 or 5 weeks, Miriam called me in the evening after his dinner, and of course I was there after my dinner too, and told me, Vic, yes, I accept your thesis. Now you think of selecting a topic for PhD. And then I said, sir, if you ask me for an answer right now, I'll say I want to do something about physical sedimentology. Well, then Miriam said, in that case, you have to talk to Dr. Bryce Hand, a professor, specialist in sedimentology, physical sedimentology. And I said, yes, sir. And you know what happened the following week was, Dr. Miriam called me in and took me over to Bryce Hand and told Bryce that, hey Bryce, look, you have a new student for you to supervise for his PhD thesis. And he has done his thesis, master's, and I have accepted. But of course, he will have to defend the thesis sooner. Then Bryce said, well, thank you, Dan. Hey, Vic, you be my disciple. I said, thank you, sir. From that time onwards, I've been in discussions with Bryce Hand for a couple of months about selecting a topic of research. And what has happened is, being an Indian, that is one. Being a person with not a great deal of money, and also being, a person who would want to be around and in Syracuse to work on a problem that will fulfill the requirements for the PhD degree. And that, again, it has to be, I wanted this to be in physical sedimentology. That is what Dr. Hand's specialization is. He's a PhD from Penn State. And his thesis was about the settling velocity based discrimination of environments of deposition, especially the transitional environments. That paper appeared in the Journal of Sedimentary Petrology, etc., etc. Of course, Bryce Hand had a master's thesis with John Shepard, Francis Shepard supervised his master's thesis in the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and that paper appeared in the Journal of Geology. So that is about Bryce. He's a very pleasant man, very helpful fellow, and that is what he proved to me when I was writing my thesis, PhD thesis. I'm not saying that, Professor Merriam is not helpful, but, Merriam is a busy person, whereas Bryce Hand is most of the time a home bird. He's around Syracuse only, travels only during the summer vacation with his children to some place of tourist interest in the United States. So, then Bryce, one of those days, gave me a book, which is actually a New York State Geological Association's field trip guide book, in which Bryce and Muller wrote a paper, a field conference paper. There was a discussion about what is called the Syracuse channels and a flood that happened toward the end of the Pleistocene due to a dam break, a glacial ice dam break. That was the hypothesis, and there was field evidence also. Bryce told me to read this part. Not read the whole thing, but focus on this Syracuse thing, because there may be a topic for your PhD program. So I just took about 2 to 3 weeks and read all about it. It is all about hydraulics and sediment transport. That is what not mentioned in the book. Instead, geological evidences are provided. Then I said, something like the Lake Missoula flood that was reworked by Victor Baker, who later on became a professor in some university in Texas. Victor Baker is still around. And I met Victor Baker in Binghamton in the 3rd week of September in 1972, talking about the Lake Missoula flood and the hydraulics of the Lake Missoula flood. Okay, so then after reading it, I went back to Dr. Hand and told Hand that, sir, I will stick to this topic. I will work out the paleohydraulics. Well, then said, okay, good luck. It is hard work. Enjoy it. Enjoy doing it. You have plenty of time. So by that time, of course, naturally, the semester closed. In the month of working day of April, I had excellent grades. I had all the 3 A's in all the courses I took. Then it was actually the summer season. And of course, Gita came down, etc., etc. We shifted to the place called Slocum Heights to settle. And one thing I wanted to add was Dr. Merriam said, Vivek, you'll have to get ready with a paper on your thesis, because you are going to present a paper in the International Association of Mathematical Geologists conference that will be held in the summer of, somewhere along during the last week of December or that 1974 or early part of January in 1975. I said, yes, I just started working on the paper because, then he said, you keep it maximum print page at 10 or 12 pages. Well, that was a hard task because, that is how you write a paper. Your thesis may be very long, but the paper has to be of suitable length so that the publishers will accept it. And naturally, Dr. Merriam was the second author. I was the first author. The paper I wrote, Merriam is a great editor. Everybody in Syracuse University Geology Department, including the teachers and senior graduate students, always say, Miriam is a gifted editor. Because whenever a teacher, one of his colleagues, writes a paper, the final version will be edited by Dr. Miriam, so that most of the time, if not all the time, the paper will be accepted or for publication. There will not be any need for making any kind of what is called editorial adjustments, editorial fixing, etc. So I gave the paper I wrote to Dr. Maria in the fall of 1974. And Dr. Miriam said, well, keep it here. There will be plenty of time. In a couple of weeks, I will fix it. And I will come back to you. So I was, all along, I have been working on the PhD thesis thing, reading and writing and, making field visits, doing field work, making measurements in the field and so on and so forth. So finally, by the end of the fall 1974, Dr. Miriam said, yes, this is the copy of your paper that you are going to present in Nice, in France. Nice, by the way, is in southern France. It is a beautiful tourist beach, and that is where the conference was held. I said, sir, I have no money to go to. No, I will go there. I will present this paper for you on your behalf. So then he handed over a final version of a typed version that he had already sent a copy of it to the conference. So that paper appeared actually in Quantitative Applications in Sedimentology, a book that was published by Pergamon in 1976. I was given a copy of that book by Miriam, and finally that book is now lying with the library in the Department of Geology of the University of Kerala. Now, coming back to my PhD fieldwork, summer was the time, 1975 summer, I devoted fully for the fieldwork. And because Geeta finished her what is called ECFMG successfully, she was off and on assisting me, going around and along with me in the field area. And I had another field assistant, a senior undergraduate student majoring in geology, Matt Lewis, yeah, that's it. Matt stands for Mathu. Anyway, so what I have to do is I have to estimate the average of 10 largest class on the sediment in the deposits. There is a huge fan delta at the mouth of the Syracuse Channel, and actually at the eastern end of the Syracuse, one of the major Syracuse channels, which is called Rock Cut Channel. It's a very deep, something like 100 feet or more deep. And in fact, Syracuse Channel those days was actually a small village. There were settlements, but it was cut through the what is called Onondaga limestone during the flood. It was deepened. It is a box-like channel. That is another beauty. Nearly flat floor and vertical walls, because the limestone is the rock. And based on the cluster size and also on the box-shaped cross-section and the numbers you can derive on it, like for example width, depth, the inclination or the slope of the floor. There are two ways of approaching the discharge, estimation of the discharge. In fact, Those days, the United States Geological Survey had come up with a Fortran software in estimating the parameters of paleo floods, and I contacted in the sense that you call them over the phone and you are put to the correct person, scientist. And most of the time, even those guys who are on the other end of the phone, when they receive a call from a graduate student, either they start answering right away, and it is actually, or it is going to be a continued conversation off and on. And they are extremely willing to help the graduate students, because what is the importance of a PhD student in any university? Because they are going to be the next generation of teachers and researchers in that country or elsewhere in the world. For some reason, this is more more accepted in the US academia as well as the survey, national survey, than perhaps in India. You know what? The reason is very simple. Even today, at this point in time, the Geological Survey of India does not require a PhD at the entry-level job. All that they look for is a MSc degree and a commendable pass in the written test by the UPSC, followed by an interview. PhD is not given any weightage. And then, unfortunately, the emphasis placed on PhD research by the Ministry of Education now, in the new education policy, is, for example, by way of financial assistance, is huge. And unfortunately, only the colleges do not require an essential qualification as a PhD. It is only a desirable qualification. And universities also stay with what is called a MSc second class. Yeah. Then they say desirable a PhD or publications. And now Kasturirangan has come up with a wonderful recommendation for in the area of school and college, university education in India. Unfortunately, I did not read the entire report. I don't think they have this Kasturirangan committee has highlighted the need for recruiting PhD holders and for teaching in the universities and in colleges. Unfortunately, this is a big drawback for all these 70 years of PhD research by Indian students in the arena of higher education in India. PhD is essential for producing a PhD, rather. Supervising successfully a PhD is an essential qualification for an assistant professor to go up to the professor's level and along with publication. But what is the fate of the PhD? Unfortunately, there is no entry-level job in India in the field of geology, whether in the Geological Survey or in the Oil and Natural Resources Commission or Corporation, where PhD is the minimum qualification at the entry level. Unless and until this is changing, our achievements in the field of innovation and technology and research will continue to be a question mark. And further, I'm not sure when government of India will decide to give a compulsory directive or compulsion will compel the recruiting agencies or the research institutions in India to require minimum qualifications PhD for the first job. I'm sure if this is so, as far as geology is concerned, it should be so in all the research jobs that are now open or will be open in India for recruiting at the entry level. So that is the bane of Indian research. You don't need a PhD to start off. If you are recruited, you may have a PhD, but they never insist PhD as an essential qualification. Well, let us hope somebody will change this kind of situation, and the Indian PhDs will find a better placement in India. And of course, what happened to my paper? My paper was with the Merriam was included in the book on, like I said, in the quantitative sedimentology, published by the Pergamon, Oxford in New York. And that's it.